Hello and welcome back to my channel. Before we begin tonight's stories, if you enjoy real-life horror experiences that'll make you think twice about where you stay, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Tonight I'm sharing 4 absolutely terrifying Airbnb experiences that happened to real people. I personally tracked down these stories, verified them as much as humanly possible, and now I'm bringing them to you. Let me warn you, after hearing these, you might never look at vacation rentals the same way again. Let's begin. The basement door. Alex booked the Airbnb in rural Pennsylvania for one reason. He needed a quiet place to finish his novel. The deadline was 2 weeks away and he'd barely written half the book. His apartment in Philadelphia was too noisy, too full of distractions. The farmhouse looked perfect. It was isolated, surrounded by fields, with the nearest neighbor half a mile away. The host, an elderly woman named Margaret, lived in the main house and rented out the connected guest suite, which had its own entrance. When Alex arrived, Margaret greeted him with fresh cookies and a tour of the suite, a bedroom, bathroom, small kitchen, and cozy living area with a desk by the window overlooking the fields. It was clean, comfortable, and wonderfully quiet. "You'll get so much work done here," Margaret said. "The only rule is, please don't open the basement door." She pointed to a door off the kitchen that had a sliding bolt lock on it. "That connects to my part of the house, and I value my privacy." Alex assured her he wouldn't go near it. He was there to work, not explore. For the first 3 days, everything was perfect. Alex wrote more than he had in months. The words flowed and the story was finally coming together. He barely saw Margaret except when she brought him fresh towels or homemade bread. On the 4th night, Alex woke to a strange sound, a faint thumping coming from behind the basement door. At first he thought it might be the heating system or old pipes, but as he listened, the thumping became more rhythmic, almost like footsteps slowly climbing stairs. Alex got out of bed and approached the kitchen. The basement door remained closed, the bolt still in place from his side. But now he could hear something else, a low, muffled sound that might have been a voice. "Margaret," he called. "Is that you?" The thumping stopped immediately. Alex waited, listening. Nothing. After a few minutes of silence, he went back to bed, convincing himself it was just the sounds of an old house settling. The next day, Alex mentioned the noise to Margaret when she brought him lunch. "Oh, that's just the old furnace," she said quickly. "Makes all kinds of noises at night. Nothing to worry about." Alex nodded, though something about her explanation didn't feel right. The furnace wouldn't explain what sounded like footsteps or a voice. That night, Alex stayed up late writing. Around 2 a.m., as he was finally heading to bed, he heard it again. The thumping from behind the basement door. This time it was louder, more insistent, and the voice was clearer too, though still muffled. "Help! Please help!" Alex froze. That was definitely a voice, a man's voice, coming from the basement. He approached the door. "Hello?" he called softly. "Is someone down there?" The thumping stopped. Then, after a moment of silence, "Please, let me out." Alex's heart raced. This wasn't Margaret. This was someone else, someone in the basement. "Who are you?" Alex asked through the door. "She keeps us down here," the voice said. "Please open the door." Us? There were multiple people in the basement? Alex backed away, unsure what to do. He could unlock the door, but what if this was some kind of trick? What if Margaret had dangerous people locked up for a good reason? He decided to call the police. But when he reached for his phone, he discovered he had no signal, not unusual in rural areas. His laptop couldn't connect to Wi-Fi either, though it had been working fine during the day. Alex looked out the window. It was pitch black outside, and Margaret's part of the house was dark too. He could try to leave, find somewhere with phone service, but his car was parked on the far side of the property, and he'd have to walk past Margaret's windows to reach it. While Alex was considering his options, the thumping at the door grew more intense. The voice became desperate. "She's coming! Please, you have to let us out now! Then Alex heard another sound. The front door of Margaret's part of the house opening and closing. Footsteps crossed the porch. Alex made a quick decision. He slid the bolt open and pulled the basement door wide. It was dark below, but he could make out a steep staircase leading down. "Hello?" he whispered into the darkness. No answer. Alex took out his phone and turned on the flashlight. He shined it down the stairs but saw no one. Slowly he began to descend, the wooden steps creaking beneath his feet. At the bottom was a large, unfinished basement with a dirt floor. His flashlight beam swept across the space, revealing old furniture covered in sheets, boxes stacked against walls, and gardening tools hanging from hooks. "Hello?" he called again. "Is anyone down here?" Still no answer. Alex moved deeper into the basement. His light fell on a door in the far wall, a heavy wooden door with multiple locks on the outside. All the locks were open, the door slightly ajar. Heart pounding, Alex approached it. He pushed the door open wider and shined his light inside. It was a small room with no windows. The walls were covered with small marks like someone had been counting days. In the corner was a thin mattress, a bucket, and some empty water bottles. Someone had been kept prisoner here. But where were they now? Alex heard a creak on the stairs behind him. He spun around, his light beam landing on Margaret. She stood halfway down the stairs, a shotgun in her hands. "I told you not to open the basement door," she said quietly. "No one ever listens." Alex backed away. "What is this place? Who was down here?" Margaret smiled sadly. "They always run when they get out, but they never get far." She gestured with the gun. "Now you'll have to take their place. Someone needs to feed them. They get so hungry." "Feed who?" Alex asked, desperately looking for a way out. "The ones in the walls," Margaret said. "The ones that speak through the pipes and knock on the doors. They've been here since before the house was built. They're always hungry." As she spoke, Alex became aware of sounds all around him, scratching noises inside the walls, soft thumping beneath the dirt floor. Margaret descended another step. "They're very excited to meet you. They don't like it when I'm alone for too long." Alex saw his chance when Margaret glanced toward one of the walls where the scratching had grown louder. He bolted past her, pushing her aside as he raced up the stairs. Her shotgun fired, the blast deafening in the enclosed space, but the shot went wild. Alex ran through the kitchen and out the front door into the night. Behind him, he heard Margaret shouting, not at him, but at something else. "No, not yet! It's not time!" He didn't look back as he sprinted to his car. His hands shook so badly he could barely get the key in the ignition. As he pulled away, his headlights swept across the front of the house. For just a moment, he thought he saw faces pressed against the basement windows. Pale, gaunt faces with dark, hungry eyes. But that couldn't be possible. The basement didn't have windows. Alex drove straight to the police station in the nearest town. When officers returned to the farmhouse the next morning, they found Margaret dead at the bottom of the basement stairs, her neck broken. There was no sign anyone else had been in the basement, no hidden room, no prisoners. But they did find something strange. Beneath the dirt floor were human bones, dozens of skeletons dating back more than a century. And scratched into the basement walls were words, the same phrase repeated over and over. "Feed us, and we let you live." The farmhouse was demolished later that year. The land remains empty. Sometimes, locals say, you can still hear thumping coming from underground, like something trying to get out. Danny and her girlfriend Rachel were planning a weekend getaway to celebrate their 3rd anniversary. They wanted something romantic but affordable, a tall order for a popular beach town in summer. After hours of searching, Rachel found what seemed like the perfect AirBnB, a small beachfront cottage with amazing reviews and a reasonable price. The listing had only one strange detail, a single 1-star review among dozens of 5-star ratings. The one-star review left by a user named Jenny T said only, "Do not stay here." No explanation, no details. Probably just someone who couldn't figure out the coffee maker, Rachel joked. The host, Amanda, was responsive and friendly when they booked. She explained she wouldn't be there to greet them but would leave the key in a lockbox. She also mentioned that cell service could be spotty, but the Wi-Fi was reliable. When they arrived, the cottage was exactly as pictured, a charming one-bedroom house with a deck overlooking the ocean. It was a short walk to restaurants and shops, but felt private thanks to the surrounding trees. They spent the first day at the beach, had dinner at a nice restaurant, and returned to the cottage for wine on the deck under the stars. Everything was perfect. That night, Danny woke up feeling something was wrong. Rachel was asleep beside her, but Danny could have sworn she heard someone moving around in the main room of the cottage. She lay still, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then she heard what sounded like someone slowly opening drawers in the kitchen. Danny gently shook Rachel awake and whispered that she thought someone was in the house. They both listened, but now everything was quiet. It was probably just the house settling, Rachel whispered back. These old beach places make all kinds of noises. Danny wasn't convinced, but eventually fell back asleep. In the morning, nothing seemed disturbed, so she tried to forget about it. They spent their second day hiking coastal trails. When they returned to the cottage that evening, Danny noticed something odd. Her swimsuit, which she'd hung in the bathroom to dry, was now folded neatly on her suitcase. "Did you move my swimsuit?" she asked Rachel. Rachel shook her head. Maybe Amanda came by to check on something? Without texting first, that would be weird. They looked around but found nothing else out of place. Still, Danny couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been in the cottage while they were out. That night, they watched a movie on Rachel's laptop. The Wi-Fi worked perfectly, but when Danny tried to check her email on her phone, she couldn't get online. "That's strange," she said. "The Wi-Fi works on your laptop, but not on my phone." Rachel tried her phone too. Same problem. Amanda did say the service was spotty, but it's not the cell service, it's the Wi-Fi. It's like it's been set to only allow certain devices. They went to bed uneasy. In the middle of the night, Danny woke again to the sound of footsteps. This time, she was sure of it. Someone was definitely walking around in the living room. She nudged Rachel, who woke up immediately. They both heard it now. Soft footsteps moving across the floor, pausing, then moving again. Danny reached for her phone to call 911, but remembered they had no service. Rachel grabbed a heavy lamp from the bedside table as a weapon. The footsteps approached the bedroom door. Danny and Rachel held their breath as the doorknob slowly turned. The door began to open. Rachel flipped on the light switch and raised the lamp, ready to throw it. But there was no one there. The door had opened, but the hallway was empty. "This is impossible," Danny whispered. They both clearly heard footsteps, and they both saw the door open by itself. They searched the entire cottage but found no one. All doors and windows were locked from the inside. They were alone, or seemed to be. Too frightened to go back to sleep, they sat in the living room with the lights on, waiting for dawn. Around 5 a.m., Rachel's laptop, which was closed on the coffee table, suddenly opened by itself and turned on. They watched in horror as the cursor moved across the screen, opened a browser, and navigated to the AirBnB website. It pulled up their booking and then opened the review section. A new Word document opened, and they watched as invisible hands typed, "I tried to warn you. Get out now." They grabbed their essential belongings and ran to their car, not even bothering to pack properly. As they pulled away, Danny looked back at the cottage. In the upstairs window, a window that shouldn't exist because the cottage was a single-story building, she saw a woman's face watching them leave. Back home, they tried to report their experience to Airbnb. While filing the complaint, they decided to look at the listing again and found something chilling. The single one-star review from Jenny T was gone. In its place were only 5-star reviews, including a brand new one supposedly written by Danny and Rachel themselves, though they had left no review. The fake review raved about the unique experience and special hospitality at the cottage and was signed with their full names and hometown. A week later, they received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a thumb drive. Against her better judgment, Danny plugged it into her computer. It contained dozens of photos of them sleeping in the cottage's bed, of them showering, of them changing clothes, and one video file which showed someone moving silently through their home, not the cottage, but their actual apartment back home, filming their belongings, their photos, their address information. The final image was a note that read, "See you soon. I loved having you as guests." They moved to a new apartment the next day. They changed their phone numbers, deleted their social media accounts, and filed a police report. But sometimes, at night, they still wake to the sound of footsteps in their home. And sometimes, when they check their email, they find new photos. Photos taken just hours before, through their windows or from inside their closets. Someone is always watching, always following, and there's nowhere they can hide. The hidden observer. James wasn't the type to splurge on vacations, but after his breakup with Emily, he needed to get away. The small cabin in the Montana woods seemed perfect, isolated, peaceful, and surprisingly affordable for a week-long stay. The listing had glowing reviews praising the cozy interior and the beautiful surroundings. When James arrived, everything looked exactly like the photos. The cabin had warm wooden walls, a stone fireplace, and large windows that faced the dense pine forest. The host, Marcus, had left a welcome note and a bottle of local whiskey. James felt his stress melt away as he settled in that first night. On his second day, James hiked the nearby trails, took photos of wildlife, and returned to the cabin as the sun was setting. He fixed himself dinner and poured a glass of whiskey. That's when he first noticed something odd. The living room had a large painting of the forest on one wall. It was nice artwork, but James couldn't shake the feeling that something about it had changed since yesterday. He walked closer to inspect it. The painting showed the same forest view visible from the windows, but James could have sworn some of the details were different. He shook it off and blamed it on the whiskey. That night, James woke up at 3:17 a.m. according to his phone. He wasn't sure what had disturbed his sleep, but he felt uneasy. The cabin was silent except for the normal creaking of wood and the distant hooting of an owl. James got up to use the bathroom, and as he passed through the living room, he glanced at the painting. He froze. The painting now showed a night scene. The same forest view, but in darkness with a faint moon providing the only light. James felt his heart racing. He was certain the painting had shown a daytime scene before. He approached it slowly, wondering if it was some trick of the shadows or his sleepy mind playing games. When he was a foot away from the painting, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the bottom corner of the painting, partially hidden by the frame, was a tiny figure of a man standing among the trees, looking directly at the cabin. At him, James backed away. He told himself it was just his imagination, that the figure had always been there and he simply hadn't noticed it before. He went back to bed but couldn't sleep. Every sound made him jump. The next morning in daylight, James examined the painting again. It now showed the forest in daylight, just as before, and there was no figure among the trees. James took a photo of the painting with his phone, determined to track any changes. Throughout the day, James tried to enjoy his vacation, but he kept checking his phone to compare the painting with the photo he'd taken. By evening, he was convinced the painting hadn't changed at all, and that he must have dreamed the whole thing. That night, James woke up again at exactly 3:17 a.m. This time, he was certain something had woken him, a sound from the living room. He lay perfectly still, listening. There it was again, a faint scraping sound like something being moved carefully across the floor. James reached for his phone and turned on the flashlight. Heart pounding, he crept toward the living room. The scraping sound stopped. When he entered the room, the beam from his flashlight immediately went to the painting. It showed the night scene again, and this time the figure in the trees was closer to the cabin, clearly visible without being hidden by the frame. James could now see it was a man in dark clothing. James quickly turned on all the lights in the cabin. He searched every room, every closet, under the beds, behind the shower curtain. Nothing. He was alone, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He decided to inspect the painting more closely. He lifted it off the wall, surprised by how light it was. Turning it over, he found nothing unusual on the back. But when he set it down against the wall and looked at the spot where it had hung, James discovered a small hole in the wall. Peering through it, James saw only darkness. He grabbed his flashlight and shined it through the hole. The beam revealed a small hidden room behind the wall, little more than a crawl space. There was a sleeping bag, food wrappers, water bottles, and several notebooks stacked neatly in the corner. James backed away from the wall. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely dial 911. When the police arrived, they found the hidden entrance to the crawl space, a panel in the back of a closet that had been disguised to look like part of the wall. The notebooks contained detailed observations of previous guests, what they ate, when they showered, conversations they had on the phone, how they slept. The last entry was about James. Subject keeps looking at my painting. I may need to find a new hiding place. The police never found Marcus, the supposed host. The real owner of the cabin lived in California and had no idea someone was using his property as an Airbnb listing when he wasn't there. To this day, James can't look at paintings without checking behind them first, and he never stays in vacation rentals anymore. If you're enjoying these stories, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. We're almost done with tonight's stories. If you're brave enough to hear the last one, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We post new true scary stories every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss them. The perfect host, Megan, and her best friend, Tara, had been planning their New York City trip for months. They were both 25, working entry-level jobs and saving every penny for this adventure. When they found an Airbnb in Manhattan for half the price of nearby hotels, they booked it instantly. The host, Liam, had perfect reviews, over 55-star ratings praising his hospitality and attention to detail. His profile picture showed a friendly man in his 40s with a warm smile. When they messaged him with questions, he responded quickly and thoroughly. Their flight landed late on a Friday night. They took an Uber to the address, a brownstone on a quiet street lined with similar buildings. Liam had told them he wouldn't be there when they arrived, but had left the keys in a lockbox by the door. The apartment was beautiful, spacious, clean, and tastefully decorated with vintage New York photographs. On the kitchen counter, they found a welcome basket with wine, chocolates, and a handwritten note from Liam explaining he was out of town for the weekend but would be back Sunday evening. The note included recommendations for breakfast places and tips for navigating the subway. "We totally lucked out," Tara said, opening the wine. Megan agreed, though something felt off. The apartment seemed lived in, with books on shelves, clothes in the closets, and family photos on the walls. This didn't look like a dedicated rental property. "Are we staying in someone's actual home?" she asked. Tara shrugged. The listing said entire apartment, not just a room. Maybe he stays somewhere else when he has guests. They spent Saturday exploring the city, returning late and exhausted. Sunday morning, they visited Central Park and some museums. As evening approached, Megan remembered that Liam was supposed to return that night. "Should we clean up before he gets back?" she asked Tara. "I think so. It's his home, after all." They tidied the apartment, washed their dishes, and packed most of their things. Around 8 p.m., they heard the front door unlock. "Hello?" called a man's voice. "Megan, Tara." They went to greet Liam, but both stopped short when they saw him. This wasn't the man from the profile picture. This man was younger, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and intense eyes. "You must be confused," he said, noticing their expressions. "I'm Liam's brother, Daniel. He asked me to check on you since he's still out of town. Everything okay with the apartment?" "Everything's perfect," Tara said. "We're leaving tomorrow morning." "Great. Don't mind me. I just need to grab some things from his office." Daniel went into what they'd thought was a storage room and closed the door. Megan and Tara exchanged glances. "His picture didn't look anything like Liam," Megan whispered. "Maybe they're half-brothers," Tara suggested. Later that night, after Daniel left, Megan couldn't sleep. Something about the situation bothered her. She opened her laptop and went to the Airbnb listing again. Looking more closely at Liam's profile, she noticed his account was only 6 months old. Despite the numerous reviews, curious, Megan started reading the reviews more carefully. They all praised the same things in suspiciously similar language. Liam was the perfect host. The apartment was exactly as described. Would definitely stay again. On a hunch, Megan did a reverse image search of Liam's profile picture. It led to a stock photo website where the same image was titled "Confident Middle-Aged Professional Man." Now, seriously concerned, Megan searched for property records for the address. The apartment belonged to someone named Robert Chen, not Liam or Daniel. Next, she looked at one of the family photos on the wall. It showed a smiling Asian family, presumably Robert Chen's family. There was no sign of Liam or Daniel in any of the photos. Megan woke Tara and showed her what she'd found. "We need to leave," Tara whispered. "Now!" They quickly packed their bags. As Megan grabbed her toiletry bag from the bathroom, she noticed something she hadn't seen before. A small black device plugged into an outlet that looked like a phone charger but had a tiny camera lens. Her hands shaking, she unplugged it and showed Tara. They searched the apartment and found 4 more hidden cameras in the bedrooms, living room, and kitchen. They called an Uber and waited on the street with their bags. While waiting, they called the police to report the illegal cameras and possible fraud. 2 days later, back home, Megan received a call from a NYPD detective. The police had searched the apartment and found not only cameras, but also several hard drives containing footage of previous guests. The real owner, Robert Chen, had been working overseas for the past year and had no idea someone was renting out his apartment. The man calling himself Daniel had keys to the apartment because he was the building's maintenance worker. He had been entering vacant apartments, installing cameras, and listing them on Airbnb under fake profiles. He'd made over 50 ones renting out apartments that weren't his. The detective explained that Daniel had been arrested, but not before he'd sold some of the footage online. "We can't be sure what was captured during your stay," the detective said. "I'm sorry." Megan and Tara never used Airbnb again. Sometimes Megan still wonders if there are videos of her most private moments floating around the internet, being watched by strangers. If this story freaked you out, drop a comment below about your own rental experiences. That's all for tonight's stories. If these tales of Airbnb horror kept you up, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Drop a comment telling me which story scared you the most. Remember to check those reviews carefully before your next vacation rental, and maybe bring your own hidden camera detector. Until next time, sleep tight if you can.